This is Talking Football with Two Ball Guys. I'm Adam.
I'm Tony.
Tony, we played a little Jimmy Bub at Margaritaville because this week we have Florida playing Georgia in Jacksonville. And what?
That is the world's largest cocktail party.
And what better way to think about drinking in a party than Jimmy Buffett, God rest his soul.
Yeah, when you're at the beach, when you're at, somewhere like that and that song comes on, it sets the mood. It sets the tone for everything. So
absolutely.
Perfect song for the world's largest.
I don't know how you can't get in a good mood when you're relaxing and listening to Jimmy Buffett.
Right. Having an adult beverage for those of you that can. And,
yeah, right.
Sitting by the beach or the pool.
Listen, we live down here in Florida. We sit by the pool very often.
Yes.
We do have an adult beverage every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
We go to football games. We like to do that. We tailgate.
Yep.
We have an adult beverage there also.
Yep.
And we eat wings sometimes and drink adult beverages.
And when that song comes on, perfect.
yes, perfect. All right, we're talking ball guys with two. We're talking football with Two Ball Guys.
Yes, we are.
We are part of Elevation 5280 Sports. It's e5280sports.com out of Denver. We said we're in Florida, but we have a great partnership with them. Check us out on their website. There's also a lot of other great podcasts on that. So if you need to listen, if you need some time going to work, take a listen to us. Take a listen to them. A lot of good stuff on that website. Also, we partnership with Happy Nuts. We've been doing it for a while. Great stuff here. I'm holding their comfort powder. We've talked about this many, many times, but we need to reiterate how much we really enjoy their products.
Yeah, you need to go out there, click on the link on our social media or anywhere you get your podcast from. Click on the link, go on there, put Two Ball Guys 20 and get 20% off of all their products. It's fantastic. You're really missing out if you're not trying it.
20% off their products. We like to say, we'd like to joke, make your nuts happy. Get some Happy Nuts body wash, powder, sprays, all the good stuff that you need. Go ahead and do that. And maybe coming soon, we might partner up and, maybe we'll have some merch available here soon.
We're definitely in the works.
We're working on that too. So a lot of good stuff coming up for us. But anyways, we're actually taping on a Sunday because Tony's a high school bowling coach and his team made the state championship. Congratulations to Tony.
Thank you. Yep, district champs. I'm excited. We got the state tournament coming up this week. So we got to, what do I say? Record this a little early.
Normally when we make the trip up, I'm not going with you, but we normally make the trip up to Orlando. We're going to a football game. It hasn't worked out this year for us yet, but you're going up to Orlando. You're going up by UCF. You'll be up there.
Yep.
Good luck to you and your team. But anyways, it's a Sunday, so we got some live NFL football going on as we tape this.
Correct.
But let's go back and let's recap a Saturday that was a little wild, a little crazy. And there's some things that happened that we thought was going to happen. There's some things that surprised us a little bit.
Yep.
Is there anything that really surprised you?
I think we can go back to Wednesday when we recorded the last week's episode of the podcast.
Oh yeah,
you and I had talked about Liberty being one of the schools to get in that's not in the Power 4.
It's not happening anymore.
But I don't think it's going to happen anymore when a team that had not won a game all year, right? Liberty undefeated goes in there and loses 27-24. Now I didn't watch the game, but I was kind of following it a little bit because Kennesaw State was winning, and then I think I texted you the next day. I don't think Liberty's going to make the playoffs.
No, so we know that Power 5 schools, for the most part, can't afford a loss. Now, Boise State might get in, but they lost to Oregon.
Right.
Oregon's the number one ranked team in the country right now. But most of the times, Power 5 teams right now, even with the expanded playoff, they can't afford a loss.
The group of 5 has to be undefeated.
They have to pretty much go undefeated unless you hit. But Liberty lost to Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State is new to FBS. I think it's been their second, maybe third year.
Okay.
I don't think very long. They're not a good team.
The record said they were.
They're not a good team. They did a decent job in FCS, not so much in FBS. And they beat a Liberty team. It shocked me.
Just anything can happen, apparently.
Anything can happen.
Apparently, when you're, like you said, other than maybe Boise, because they have that close loss to Oregon, who's the number one team in the country, that group of 5 team to get in is pretty much have to be undefeated. Boise might be the only exception. We both talked about Liberty at the beginning of the year making it, and I think that their time is over. I don't think – I'd have to look at their schedule, but I'm guessing they don't have a whole lot of strong opponents left to boost their resume.
I'm guessing Florida Liberty is
they're out.
They're out.
Yeah, they're out.
The thing that shocked me, and maybe I should have gone with what my mouth said compared to what my brain was thinking, is I kept saying that Navy was going to beat Notre Dame. But as I was saying it, I was looking at something else on my phone, and I kept saying Notre Dame.
You manifested it.
I manifested it because not only did Notre Dame win that game, they forced 6 turnovers, which Navy had turned the ball over, I think, twice all year. And I really did think Navy was going to win. I really, really did. But Navy needed to play an almost perfect game to do it, which they had pretty much almost all year
Right.
long.
They
They only turned the ball over twice in the first 6 games, I think it was. You can't turn the ball over 6 times pretty much against anybody.
Nobody.
But then when you're playing a team at Notre Dame caliber, whatever we think about Notre Dame right now,
They're
you
still not
you
bad.
can't do that and win a game. And they did it, and they lost by 37.
Right. And I picked Notre Dame, but I thought Navy could run the ball, control the clock, and keep the score close. But 6 turnovers, very difficult to come back and fight and win 6 turnovers. Yeah, they got blown out 51-14. Take away those 6 turnovers. Can Navy win? I don't know, but I think the game's a lot closer. But 6 turnovers, tough to battle through that.
All right.
It really wasn't a surprise.
It wasn't a
Maybe
surprise. The beating was a surprise. It wasn't really a surprise. There wasn't a ton of other really surprises. UNLV had held Genty to 128 yards,
Right.
but he still got 128 yards.
Yeah. Now his yards per carry were down a little bit.
It was.
Boise still won.
Yes.
And that's what's important with them right now. They need to keep winning. He's going to win the Heisman. I mean,
he better win the Heisman as long as he keeps doing what he's doing.
Keep doing what he's doing. Don't get hurt. Keep in mind, he hasn't played like the fourth quarter for a couple of games too in some of those games.
If your bad game is 128 yards,
you're in good shape.
You're in good shape. You're in good shape.
Were you surprised at Indiana at all? Backup quarterback.
Yes, because the backup quarterback. Yes. Now, if it would have been at Washington, I think it could have been a legitimate because Washington had played much better at home than they have on the road. But yes, Indiana, they were. By the way, I saw this stat and I have to pull it up. I left it up for you.
Is this the stat I'm thinking of with Indiana?
I have to find. Hold on. The Indiana. So yes, I was a little surprised how Indiana did it, and I gotta find this. So
I actually kind of thought Washington not only could beat Indiana with their starting quarterback, but when their starting quarterback was out, I thought this was Washington's chance to really go out there and beat I think a pretty good Indiana team. But Indiana's defense showed up. It was close a little bit early, and the offense just found a way to get it to playmakers. Indiana has some playmakers out there. A little surprising.
All right, so Indiana is 8-0. They tied. They've been 8-0 before. Okay,
9-0 is the first time.
They were without their starting quarterback. They are 8 games in the season, and Indiana has not trailed in a game.
Not trailed.
Okay, according to ESPN research, no other program in the last 20 years has done it. Not even Alabama.
That's surprising. 8-0, never trailed for 1 minute. 1 second.
This is ESPN's last sentence. A program best known for providing depressing lyrics to John Mellencamp songs is suddenly doing things even Nick Saban couldn't do.
It is wild. Are they for real? Are you sold on Indiana yet? I'm still iffy. This game helped them for me a little bit because the backup quarterback situation. They still put up 31 points. Are they for real?
You can't go 8-0 and beat teams.
They've been beating teams.
And not be a little bit for real.
Okay.
Now, they go to Michigan State next week, which Michigan State just lost to Michigan. We'll talk about that a little bit. Then they play Michigan and Ohio State, which say what you want about Michigan, is still Michigan. They still have to beat Michigan. And then at Ohio State. But they are a week removed from beating Nebraska at home 56-7.
Yep.
Ohio State at home, not at Nebraska. So both these teams play Nebraska at home in back-to-back weeks, not 6 weeks apart. We're talking back-to-back weeks. Indiana beat Nebraska 56-7.
It wasn't close. It never was close.
Ohio State beat Nebraska 21-17 and probably could have lost the game.
Correct. Which, if you want to talk about surprises for the weekend, I don't think there was a ton of upsets other than Kennesaw and Liberty, but that game surprised me about as much as anything. Ohio State looked like they were skipping that game and going forward to Penn State, which is coming up. And they just went out there and looked vanilla and basic. And Nebraska didn't look like anything special. They only scored 17 points. That's about what Nebraska scores, 17, 24, somewhere in there. Ohio State just looked like they didn't care or something. I don't know. I think Ryan Day might have a problem there. Or he is the problem. I don't know. There's something going on. You have that much talent, you can't beat Nebraska by more than 4 at home. And you were down.
Ryan Day,
They were down 17-14, and then Ohio State goes,
and Nebraska got stopped on the 1.
Right, on 4th down, yes.
I
don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on.
Ohio State fan has to be concerned because you got a tough Penn State team to play.
Right, and Penn State is just winning. They're just finding ways to win. They didn't look great again against Wisconsin for most of the game, and then they won by 15. But you know what? They're winning.
That's all Penn State has.
All right. We're going to go true and false here.
Let's do it.
We've been doing it. It's like little segment we like to do. We want to go true or false. We just talked about Ohio State, so I'm going to say this: true or false? The favorites for the Big Ten now are Oregon and Penn State.
I'm going to say true. Indiana's still on my mind, but I'm not convinced on anybody. I'm going to say true. Oregon for sure. They went into Illinois, who's been playing good football,
and destroyed them,
and just absolutely made them look bad. Oregon for sure, and I still need more information from Indiana, but yes, those are the two teams. That's true.
I mean, we'll know real quick because Penn State plays Ohio State, and we'll get more into that game right now. But the thing is, Penn State just keeps winning, and Ohio State lost to Oregon, and Ohio State fan might be able to chalk it up to, oh, we were down, or we were looking ahead to Penn State, but we shouldn't have been that close to Nebraska. I like Oregon and Penn State. Indiana does not play Penn State. They both play Ohio State. Penn State does not play Michigan. Indiana has to play Michigan. But the way Michigan's played, who knows?
Right. Do you know how the tiebreaker is going to work?
I don't know.
Real possibility.
I don't. We'd have to look it up. It's like 7 deep,
crazy,
and it gets into that. I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
We're going to have to look into that because this very real possibility that Big Ten can get a little messy with some tiebreakers and stuff like that. With Indiana, Ohio State.
I would partially agree because Ohio State is coming off a loss. They know they can't lose. You don't have you don't have a way to look ahead. You can't look ahead. But we'll figure it out this weekend because when Ohio State plays Penn State, but the game, where's that game at?
I think it's in. Is it in Columbus?
I don't know. We have to look it up.
If it's in Columbus, Ohio State's obviously going to know. It's in Happy Valley.
Okay.
So Penn State, if the team that plays Nebraska shows up at Penn State's going to beat them bad.
Yeah.
But if the Ohio State that showed up to play Oregon and the Ohio State, the talent that they have shows up, that'll be a good game.
The good thing for Ohio State is it's a new game. It's not a whiteout game at night at Penn State because that's pretty intimidating.
Those are different. The whiteout at Penn State is completely different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy. That's not a late game, but that would have been more fun if it was a whiteout game.
Yes.
I don't know. Ohio State is not impressing me right now after that Nebraska. Of course, Nebraska fan thinks that Nebraska's that good. You're a week away from losing 49 points to Indiana.
Right.
Stop.
Now, true or false, and this is more of just a funny thing. True or false, Raiola needs to stop with the impressions of Patrick Mahomes so much.
He needs to focus more on football and a little less on trying to run and hop and throw and play like Patrick Mahomes. I get it. He's your guy. He's a good guy to look up to, it seems. He's a great football player, Patrick Mahomes, but you're trying too hard to be like him, and you're not quite there yet. And it might be costing you your team some points.
It's a little ridiculous if you see, he has obviously studied
100%.
Raiola, Mahomes, and he is trying to be like him.
He's doing a kind of a good job.
He's doing a great job.
Recognize all the little movements and quirks and stuff that Patrick Mahomes has.
It's a little freaky.
Somewhat annoying to watch. If he was throwing for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, maybe. But when you have the ball and you're driving against Ohio State and you could win the game and you throw an interception, you're not Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Sorry. Be Dominic Raiola. He's going to be a good quarterback. He's a freshman. But yeah, you're not Patrick Mahomes quite yet. But Nebraska fan thinks they're really good. Ohio State fan now thinks Nebraska's a good team because they played them that close. Ohio State's got to step it up or they're in trouble.
All right. True or false? The Sooners, Oklahoma, are not going to make a bowl.
Boy. I want to say false, but Maine is coming up this week. So
Maine is coming up this week.
That's going to get them to 5 wins. But
they finished with Missouri, Alabama, and LSU. Now, Missouri just got mollywopped. Yeah, pulling out a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air by Alabama. Yes. But they go Alabama, LSU. It's 3 ranked teams after Maine.
So Maine will get us to 5, get Oklahoma to 5-4. So yes, I'm not playing. 5-4. The next best option is Missouri, I think.
Agreed.
I don't think, even though it's in Columbia, I don't think they can beat Alabama. And LSU, I know, just lost to Texas A&M, but LSU is still a pretty good team. And the way Oklahoma's offense is playing, they're not going to score enough points there. I'm going to say true. They're not going to make the bowl. They're not gonna make a bowl.
I think it's going to be tough.
Unless all the wide receivers come back,
Down they played Ole Miss tight for a half, and then they got shut out in the second half. It was at Ole Miss. I mean, but they showed that they can play with some teams. Like, I mean, obviously they struggled against Texas. South Carolina was just a complete mess. But they played with Tennessee also. They better beat Maine. If they don't beat Maine, then just kiss everything goodbye. But I think they have a shot to beat Missouri. Yes. Now, I think they have a shot to beat LSU also, but the problem is it's at LSU. In Bama, I mean, who knows? I mean, I would say at the beginning of the year, that three game gauntlet at the end of the year looked like just awful. It doesn't look as bad now, but
Bama's,
but Oklahoma at the same time, and we're talking about Michigan in a second. Bama at the same time is in a situation where they haven't shown they can beat those teams yet either.
Right. I mean, the loss to Vandy looked bad at first, but now Vandy might be a little bit more legit than we thought. Playing Texas really close. So Bama, beat Georgia, loses to Vandy, they lose to Tennessee. So they can lose, but I just don't think Oklahoma's offense, especially with all those wide receivers out, can score enough points right now. They just can't. They're relying too much on the defense to keep them in games. And you can't score 14 points against a good Ole Miss team and win. Like you're going to score over 20 points to win football games. It's not going to. If you can't do that, it's not going to happen. So Maine, get the win, get back on track, go into Missouri, and maybe squeeze one out and get bowl eligible. That's right. Right now, that's the best we can hope for. 6-6, right?
I would think so. And you know what? We're just going to Michigan. True or false? Michigan is not going to make a bowl game.
Boy, you have their schedule pulled up real quick.
Here's the thing about Michigan. They beat Michigan State this week.
You just need one win.
They only need one win, and they do have Northwestern at home on their schedule. But their other three games are Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State. It's about as rough as Oklahoma has. It might be worse. It's worse in Oklahoma because we have Oregon and Ohio State.
Because I think I would take Indiana over Missouri if they were to play right now. Maybe not LSU or Bama. Northwestern, I think, that's a win. So that's
like Maine.
That's like Maine. That's gonna get you in. So true, you're gonna get in.
But Ohio State and Oregon are better.
Right, Oregon's better than Bama. So that is a rough gauntlet as well. True. They'll get in. They're gonna get in. You hoping for 7 wins, maybe? Maybe you can.
I hope they can upset one of those other teams, preferably Ohio State.
Well, let me ask you this: you beat the little brother, little sister, whatever you call them, Michigan State.
Yep.
That's obviously a big win. And then if you beat Ohio State and lose the rest of them, are you? Does that help your season?
I'm not happy, but 100%. Well, see, at this point in the season, because Michigan's 5-3. If they can beat Northwestern and get 6-3, and they beat Ohio State and make it 7-5, if they lose to Oregon and Indiana, am I happy? No, but does it help? Because at this point, we're not making the playoffs. Michigan is not making the playoffs. Even if they roll off the next 4 wins and go 9-3, which if they win the next 4 games. But it's still at 9-3.
You would need some help.
They would need a whole lot of help to get in the playoffs. So we're not making the playoffs. So do I want to go 9-3? Do I want to upset Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State? Let's screw up some seasons. Absolutely. But if we were to lose Oregon, Indiana, beat Northwestern, and beat Ohio State, I'm not disappointed with the season because I still have the national championship from last season. We've talked about that a lot.
You have your national championship. You just beat your 2 rivals this year, specifically Ohio State. I think that would help your season a lot. I mean, if Oklahoma could win out, that would be great. That's probably not going to happen, but we still got blown out by Texas, so that hurts.
I think we would both of us would be happy with 2-2 finishes.
Yes, that'd get Oklahoma in a bowl. That'd get Michigan in a bowl. Who knows? They might find each other in a bowl.
They might play each other. I looked it up. The one bowl I think they would play is the ReliaQuest Bowl, which used to be the Outback Bowl in Tampa. Unfortunately, that is close to us.
That would work too.
Unfortunately, I'm going to be on a cruise during that time, so we can't go to the game. So we're just going to have to hopefully wait to the regular season game next year. Right. And if anybody wants to sponsor us to go up to Oklahoma, we'll do that. We'll shout you out. Whatever you want. We'll go over. You come with us.
T-shirts with your name on.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm with him. All right, we'll finish this little segment off. True or false? Ashton Jeanty should win the Heisman. We're going to just keep going with it.
100% true, because who else are you putting in there?
Do you think the game against UNLV hurt his chances?
If you look at what he'd done previously, it looks not as good, right? But if you're going to tell me that someone who just ran for 128 yards is not still in the Heisman running, you're crazy. If he stays healthy and keeps putting up his numbers, he needs to win the Heisman 100%. That's true. Dylan Gabriel's having a nice year, okay, but he's really the only other person out there. I think Quinn Ewers being hurt. Quinn Ewers not playing very well at all against Georgia. He's out. Who else is even in the mix right now? Travis Hunter, maybe Travis Hunter.
Maybe Travis Hunter, but he was out for a couple games,
Right.
so I would agree. Like,
Who else is
I
in
mean,
there?
people are gonna look at it and be like, "Oh, he didn't run as well this week,"
Compared to what he's been doing, yes,
but
128 is still good.
it's still good. I think he should win it. I
Yes,
think
it's
he's the
his.
favorite to win it
Has to.
because no quarterback has really just stood out. Now, again, I think Cam Ward is the one because
Okay,
Miami's still
Sometimes
undefeated.
I forget about Cam, even though I have a Miami
And
shirt
Carson
on.
Beck obviously is very, very good. But I would agree. I think Genty is the guy to win it.
Tell me right now, Boise State has the exact same record they do if he's not on the field. I don't think they do. I think that's the key. If you take him off that team and put another running back in there who maybe only averages 90 to 100 yards a game, Boise State might have 2 or 3 losses.
Yeah, I would agree.
For sure.
All right, so we talked about this stuff, and I sent you a text the other day.
You did.
It was from The Athletic. It was their projected playoff before coming into the weekend, okay?
Yeah.
They had Oregon as the number 1 seed. I don't have a problem with that.
No, that makes sense.
And then right away, it's where
This is where it gets weird.
they have Miami as a 2 seed. Listen,
Okay, but come on. If they run the table, you're not telling me.
I'm telling you right now, if Miami is undefeated, runs the table in the ACC, and if Georgia runs the table the rest of the way, Georgia is ahead of Miami.
Georgia has a loss.
I don't care.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Tell me right now, if Georgia runs the table, they're not the 2 seed. If Oregon runs the table,
Oregon runs the table.
if Oregon runs the table, they're
1
one.
seed. There's no argument there.
If Georgia runs the table, I don't care if Miami runs the table. If Georgia runs the table,
All right, I'm gonna be hypocritical here. I'm gonna say Miami runs the table. They probably should be 2, but then but then what about the Big 12 champ if they run the table? They shouldn't be like they would have an argument for 2
Right.
according to my logic.
Right.
Okay, Georgia's probably 2.
The committee, I couldn't think of that word for a second. The committee likes the Big Ten and the SEC.
Well, for sure.
They love the SEC.
For good reason.
They greatly like
They-
the Big Ten.
over the Big 12 and ACC.
I'm not even going to say if Georgia run the table, I can see Georgia being 1, even with the 1 loss over Oregon, who's undefeated.
Stop it. You think so? You think they like
You
them
don't.
that much?
Okay, if I said bet, if I told you right now, you had to bet all your money that you have, your house, everything. If Oregon runs the table and Georgia runs the table, bet all your money that Oregon's the number 1 seed. Would you do it over Georgia?
No,
Would you do it?
No,
You wouldn't do it.
They do love Georgia.
They do love Georgia. Now, should Oregon get it and will they get it? I think so,
Yeah.
but I would not bet my money on it.
But does the top 4 seeding really matter all that much? I guess it does because the 1 seed will play the 8-9 winner, and if you're the 4 seed, you're going to play the 5-12 winner. I mean, does that? I don't know how that works out. Like, does it really matter where you're at in there? I guess it depends on who you're going to be playing in the second round.
It does.
I guess it does.
And here's the thing. Like, I know you kept going on about, well, the regular season game doesn't matter, and this is what you were worried about with the expanded playoff with Georgia and Bama playing early and like that, right? But it does matter because if you're the conference winner, you get a top 4 seed. It matters. So it matters. So Georgia beating Alabama. I'm sorry, Alabama beating Georgia at the beginning of the year. Now they screwed up and lost to Vanderbilt the next week, so that changes things. And then they lost to Tennessee. So that mattered. But at the time, Bama beating Georgia mattered because then they had the tiebreak to get to the championship game, and now they have a chance. Because say what you want, I don't care if you're playing Navy, Army, or Boise State or some other team in the first round. It's one more game you have to play. You don't want to do that,
right? Because you risk injury. If you do have guys that need an extra week to get healthy, that does help. Now, do the quarterfinal round, the top 4 teams, do they get home field advantage at that? Or
no, that's
just the very first round, right? First round games. So this shows 8-9 Notre Dame. Notre Dame would go to Clemson to play. Ohio State would go to Boise, or would it be the other? No. Boise would go to Ohio State. Clemson would Clemson would go to Notre Dame. Indiana would go to Texas. Tennessee would go to Penn State. Out of all those matchups, I like the Tennessee-Penn State one probably the best. I think Ohio State beats Boise. Clemson Notre Dame could be interesting. I think
Yeah.
they're two
So
evenly matched.
so
teams.
here's the thing, and let me get back to this
I don't
because
know why does this have a Iowa State instead of BYU.
and
That's
here's the
interesting.
thing. Like, okay, so they have Iowa State as the 4 seed as the Big 12 champion. Okay. Here's what I agree with. Oregon winning the Big 10 right now. I agree with that. I mean, they could obviously lose Penn State if they played Ohio State again. They could lose. Who knows? But Indiana,
Right, that can change.
Georgia, I would agree with because right now they've shown it. They beat Texas, all that stuff. Miami, I would agree. The ACC is kind of weak. Clemson is the one that could be in there, but I would agree. The Iowa State at the 4 seed. Now they have them there,
Why not BYU?
but they don't have BYU, and BYU hasn't done anything like. They both just played UCF. Iowa State played UCF at home and needed a touchdown in the last minute to win. BYU went to UCF and just laid the hammer to them. I don't know why you have Iowa State, but okay. Let's just sub BYU in for Iowa State, but you have it. Okay. The 5 seed right now they have is Ohio State. The 6 seed they have is Penn State. The 7 is Texas. Now Texas just went to Vanderbilt. Suddenly, tough game to play. Tough place to play at. 1-3, but they won. Okay. Texas obviously surprised me, and I know Texas fans are probably having a fit right now. Okay. They have the 8 seed is Notre Dame, which, you know what, I don't disagree with.
Probably.
Clemson 9, I don't disagree with. Indiana 10, we'll see because they still have to play Ohio State, Tennessee, and Boise State. Boise State obviously looks like the best group of 5 team that's in there. I don't necessarily disagree with the other ones. I'm a little shocked at Texas being 7th.
Right, because they're probably going to be one of the top 3 teams in the SEC, maybe the second best team in the SEC, and they put them down at 7. That is really strange. Now, if you put them at, 5? Because they're going to be ranked over Ohio State, most likely, if they win out.
Right.
So why would you put Ohio State over Texas? Now, of course, this came out before Ohio State looked bad against Nebraska. But then you would just flip. Or is it because, you know what, you don't want to see Ohio State, Indiana again? Because if you put Texas at 5 and Ohio State at 7, that matches up with Indiana, and you got Penn State. So, maybe you're trying to match up so you don't get Big Ten. There's a lot of Big Ten teams in here. Geez, if you look at it.
Yeah.
Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State. Wow. SEC's got Georgia, Tennessee, Texas. It's a Big Ten SEC loaded, and they got 2 ACC teams and then one from Independent and Iowa State.
Yeah.
It's SEC Big Ten.
It is SEC. I don't listen. If Texas wins out, they're not a 7th seed. Even if they would lose another one, because they have Ohio State and Penn State both ahead of them. They're playing each other. One of them's going to lose. One of them will probably then go to the Big Ten championship game. I don't know. It's a lot. I'm a little shocked at Iowa State being in there. I'm a little shocked at Texas being at 7. The Indiana, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon is interesting because Indiana does play Ohio State.
Right.
So, but then again, if Indiana only loses Ohio State and goes 11-1, but that's the thing, their non-conference schedule was so bad.
But they can get into that Big Ten championship game with 1 loss. They can get in there.
Not if they lose to Ohio State.
If they lose to Ohio State, but Penn State beats Ohio State. That's where these tiebreakers are going to come in. Penn State beats Ohio State. Ohio State beats Indiana, right? So, and then Penn State could trip up against somebody. We'd have to look and see who Penn State has remaining. Do they have, other than Ohio State, could they lose one?
Yeah, Penn State could definitely lose. No, I don't think they can lose to. If they lose Ohio State and they lose again, they're in trouble.
I'm saying Penn State beats Ohio State.
Oh, Penn State beats Ohio State?
They're in.
They're in.
It's them and Oregon. Probably.
They're in. Yeah. Well, who does Penn State have outside of?
See that? If they fool around and beat Ohio State, they might have locked themselves in there, barring something crazy. Which, the way things are going, it could happen.
Right. Do you have Penn State's schedule pulled up?
I do have Penn State's schedule pulled up. So if Penn State beats Ohio State this upcoming, they still have Washington, but it's in Happy Valley, which you never know. Purdue, not good. Minnesota, could Minnesota upset Penn State? And Maryland. I don't think Maryland can do it. And Minnesota maybe could fool around and upset them. Washington, I don't think so after the way they got beat by Indiana. Washington, I don't think has enough. Penn State wins this weekend. I think that they cruise into the Big Ten championship. The only team that could fool around and mess it all up would be Oregon at this point. If Oregon somehow loses to Michigan,
Oregon plays Michigan at Michigan this week.
I mean, you never know because Oregon doesn't really have anybody left. They have Maryland, who's not good. Wisconsin, I don't think can beat them, and Washington, I don't think can beat them. I don't think Michigan's the only team left. I think that could upset Oregon. So Penn State wins. It's Oregon, Penn State. Does that leave Ohio State out of the playoff? If Ohio State loses to Penn State, are they out? And Penn State obviously would have to run the table, but I think they can do that.
If Ohio State loses to Penn State, they would have two losses. One would be to Oregon, and the other would be Penn State.
They're out.
They're 10-2. I don't think they're out. I don't think they're out.
They get like an 8
I think they're
9 seed, something like
or
that.
even farther
10
down.
seed.
Yeah. I think if they're obviously not in the Big Ten championship game, right?
No,
So they would have lost to Oregon and Penn State. But the problem is, both their wins at that point would be the top 5 teams. And if you go like, listen, we're 10-2. Our 2 losses have come against top 5 teams. I don't,
They're 4th right now. They would have to fall. They wouldn't fall very far for losing to the number 3 team. I mean, they might fall down to 6 or 7, maybe.
The only way it hurts them is if they get just throttled by Penn State. But even then, you can say we're 10-2, and our 2 losses are against top 5 teams.
Top 3 teams.
Well, it could be right. Could be top 3 teams.
I mean, okay, so Ohio State just is pretty much in. You're saying Ohio State's in the playoff?
Well, no, not pretty much because they still have to beat Michigan. And you can say what you want about Michigan. It's still a rivalry game. We've seen weird things happen.
I mean, they have Indiana too. I guess.
Oh, they have Indiana too.
So they could lose 2 games. They could lose 2 games, and then they have a win against Indiana. And if that's Indiana's only loss of the year, they have that. It's interesting because things are going to get crazy. With
this back of the Big Ten is pretty loaded. You have Penn State playing Ohio State. Ohio State plays Michigan. Michigan plays Indiana. Michigan obviously plays Ohio State. Michigan plays Oregon.
Ohio State plays Indiana.
You have a whole bunch of this stuff that could happen right now. Listen, I'm not trying to say Michigan's done anything to prove that they could beat Oregon or Ohio State or Indiana for that matter. But they still have talent.
Yeah.
So Michigan could screw up some stuff here.
For sure.
But let's say Michigan doesn't even do that. Ohio State still has to beat Penn State and Indiana. Indiana showed that even with their backup quarterback, this isn't the same Indiana team because normally you lose your starting quarterback like that. It's over. They beat a capable Washington team. Now, is Washington great? No. But they they're capable.
With your backup quarterback.
Right? They throttled Nebraska, who played Ohio State close. So like there's that, you have. So
it's going to get interesting in that Big Ten for sure. The SEC could get messy too because everyone seems to have a loss in the SEC.
Right.
I mean, there's no undefeated teams in the SEC, are there? No, I don't think so.
No.
So they're all 1 or 2 losses with Georgia.
Which is wild.
Which is crazy.
Georgia has a loss. Bama has 2 losses.
Tennessee has a loss.
Tennessee has a loss. Tennessee lost to Arkansas.
Texas has a loss.
Texas lost to Georgia.
So it's all a bunch of 1 loss, 2 loss, a 2-loss SEC.
At this point of the year, would you think that the Big Ten would have 3 no-loss teams?
No.
And the SEC would have none?
No,
none.
Not that. No, I would say Big Ten 3 maybe, but SEC to have none. That's crazy. Because you think with Texas, Georgia, Bama, Tennessee, somebody would be undefeated. They'd beating each other up a little bit.
Yeah.
How about the Big 12 with 2 undefeated teams?
Right, Iowa State and BYU,
Right.
which they do not play in the regular season.
So that's if they.
Here's the thing too, like
work out.
if they both run the table, which is very possible, and they play in the Big 12 championship game, you're telling me the loser of the Big 12 championship game doesn't get in?
A 1-loss Big 12 loser doesn't get in? I think they do.
I think they do.
Too. I think this scenario that's playing out right now is kind of hurting maybe a 1-loss Notre Dame team. Or
possibly.
I mean,
but here's what's going to happen.
Notre Dame wins out.
Here's
Notre Dame wins out.
Here's the thing that I think is a very real possibility. Notre Dame's 11-1. Okay. BYU, Iowa State both go undefeated, get to the championship game. One of them's 11. One of them is now 12-1. One of them's 13-0. Indiana, what happens if they lose to Ohio State? They're 11-1. They're not in the Big Ten championship game because let's say Ohio State beats Penn State. Ohio State goes to Oregon, right? Or goes to play Oregon. So now, let's say Ohio State loses the game, but then Ohio State's 11-2, but their win is against Indiana, who's 11-1. And now you have BYU and UCF, but one of them made the conference championship game. Indiana didn't.
Right.
Iowa State played Iowa out of conference. BYU played SMU out of conference.
Which SMU's not.
Indiana played nothing
Oh.
out of conference. But Ohio State has 2 losses, but they beat Indiana. I mean, it gets messy because if you're coming to that point, it's like you're telling me that BYU or Iowa State, who's 12-1, their only loss came in the conference championship game, which is an extra game. Doesn't get in because of Indiana, who didn't beat Ohio State.
And that's the only.
I don't like Indiana. I really don't like Indiana. I like the Indiana story because they came out of nowhere.
Literally nowhere.
But at that point, you're 11-1. But then, does Tennessee get in? Let's say they're 11-1, but they didn't make to the SEC championship game. But they did beat Bama.
Right.
I think they might play Georgia later.
We're not even throwing in the possibility that Oregon loses.
Right.
Oregon loses to whoever.
What if Oregon goes to Michigan next week and loses?
What if Oregon loses the Big Ten championship game?
It's possible.
To a
Penn State
or
Ohio State, or even Indiana.
Now it's getting messy.
And it's fun. You're telling me you don't like this?
Man, I don't know yet. It's fun to talk about and do this.
You're the one that was so opposed to this.
I was very opposed to the teams playing each other multiple times. That was one of my biggest things because I don't want to see. My fear was Georgia-Bama, which I don't think is going to happen now. Thank you. But my fear was teams playing each other up to 3 times. Like that was a legit possibility. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we have that potential now. But I just didn't want to see the same matchups. And looking at that ranking, I don't want to see Iowa State getting a first round bye.
You say you don't
getting killed by Ohio State.
You say you don't like teams playing 3 times, but like what happens in the NFL if the Raiders were to play the Chiefs in the playoffs?
I've told you this tons of times. In 2012 or whatever, the Raiders went 8-8. All 8 of their wins were all their division opponents. They didn't make the playoffs. They were the best team in that division, but they didn't make the playoffs. They won every single game against division opponents, but lost every night.
But they went 2-8 against everybody else. So I mean, you got to make. But even then, you're telling me that a third matchup in the NFL playoffs sucks?
No, it just doesn't.
So
how many times do you have to beat a team to prove that you're better than them? 2, 3, 4 times. If you beat a team twice, isn't that enough? It's hard to beat good teams multiple times.
Okay. I hear you. But what about in every other sport that's a best of 7 series? You're telling me the team lost 3 times to a team, wins game 7 in hockey, in baseball, in NBA, which we hate.
Baseball, pitching changes things. If you just had the best pitcher and it was a 1-game series, that doesn't show you how good of a team.
Okay, but let's say the Raiders beat the Chiefs at home. The Raiders lose to the Chiefs at Kansas City. That changes things, and now they're playing a neutral site. You're telling me those 3 things. I know they don't want to play at a neutral site. I get that,
right.
But you're saying that changes things enough? I mean, that's what you're just telling me.
No, I'm telling you that if you beat every team in your division, you should not have to play them in the playoffs.
What about if, let's say, the Dodgers had to play the Padres in the NLCS?
Baseball's different because of pitching.
Get out of here.
Pitching and designated hitter changes things.
Okay, what about NBA?
NBA's garbage. We already know that.
Well, okay. What about hockey?
Hockey's a different animal. I don't know.
Okay, but I'm being devil's advocate a whole bunch here. I understand that.
No, you are.
Okay. You said the pitching.
Hockey's apparently the exception.
You said the pitching for baseball.
And you agree with that. I know you do.
It does a little bit. I get it.
Come on.
I get it. Okay, NBA is garbage, but if it wasn't garbage, we didn't hate it. What changes things there? You don't have anything.
I don't like it.
Okay, what about hockey?
How many times do you have to beat a team to prove that you're better than them?
But a lot of games.
Why does hockey have that series though? Because it's the same guys out there, right?
But it's the same thing as football.
Why does hockey have the best of 5 or 7, whatever they have in the playoffs?
I don't know. That's what they do.
Right. I don't get why hockey. I get why baseball does. That makes sense to me. NBA,
okay.
Maybe NBA because guys get hot. One guy could get hot and then beat you. And prove to me you can do it again.
A quarterback can get hot.
Do it again. So, if you're telling me right now that if you beat Michigan and Ohio State were undefeated, and they played, and Michigan beat them in the regular season, turn around and beat them in the Big Ten championship, and then met up in the playoffs and lost to them, you'd be like, "Yep, that's the way it works." No, you'd be furious, and Ohio State would be like, "We don't care about those other 2 losses. We're going to play in the playoffs."
So you're saying that the Yankees, when they went up 3-0 against the Red Sox, should have just won that series?
No, because pitching. You can't. Baseball's a bad example. You're losing with baseball because pitching's completely different.
And
Pitching
you don't
baseball.
like hockey enough.
I don't know why hockey does.
You don't
it. I
have a
know
team
why.
in
I don't have a
hockey.
team in hockey. I don't know why. I don't want us to play the same team over and over and over.
Your logic is failed.
That's why they only play it.
You have a problem with your logic.
No, I don't, because
Yes, you do. This is the one thing we
so
argue
you're telling
about.
me you have to beat the team multiple times in football?
You have to do it for every other sport. Every other sport.
That's why college football is the best.
College football is amazing. I love
That's
it.
why it's
I
the
love
best. That's my point. It's the best because every game matters so much more. That's literally my point.
You're telling me
NFL, if you lose 5 games in the NFL, you can win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
You lose 5 games in college, it's over.
I agree. I would agree.
That's why it's better.
It is awesome.
That's
I
why
love
it's
college.
better.
But
You're
telling
proving my point.
okay, you're telling
You're saying NFL is not as good as college. Yes, you're right. That's why it's the best.
But you tell me right now that you Yankees fan, they're down 2-0. They should be done. You should be done. You should be done. Done.
No, because we have other pitchers. Different
Done.
pitchers.
You're done.
Pitching already
Done. Don't give up a grand slam in the 10th inning.
Well,
You're done.
Don't throw freaking Nestor Cortez, who hasn't pitched in a month. And don't throw that ball inside to Freddie Freeman, because that's what
That wasn't inside. That was down the middle. That was right down the middle.
Too far. Don't throw that.
So it should be done, though. You're saying it should be done. Because how many times?
Other pitchers could come in.
How many times does the Dodgers have to beat the Yankees to prove they're a better team?
You have to have apparently 4 pitchers that are better than Yankees 4 pitchers. That's what you have to have. I get baseball because of pitching. If you played one game and one team had a dominant pitcher, nobody would ever beat them ever in the playoffs, ever. Like the year Pedro Martinez or Randy Johnson, those guys never would beat those teams. But you have to have more than one dominant pitcher. But that's why college football is so great, because you can't lose 4 times. You don't have to beat the same team 10 times. Raiders won every game in the division, didn't make the playoffs.
I would agree to a point.
You're telling me the Raiders weren't the best team in the division, even though they beat every team in that division? Every team in that division, they beat them, but they didn't win their division? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's why college is better. Because in college, if you beat every team in your conference, you're the best team. Duh.
Now, that is the one thing I do kind of agree with, is that
that's why
in professional sports, your record against your division teams doesn't really matter. No. It matters, but it doesn't. It matters for tie breaks, and that's it. But you're right. In college sports, your conference actually matters.
And that's the part that I love about college. If you go in, Michigan beats Ohio State, great, you win your conference. But then you both make the playoff and Ohio State wins. You're telling me you're not going to be like, but we beat you in the regular season in the Big Ten.
But at the same time, let's say that let's say that year that the Raiders, if they would have made the playoffs at 8-8, or let's say they won one more game and 9-7, okay, they didn't win their division, but then they beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. You're telling me you wouldn't be happy?
Well, yeah, I'm always happy when they beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs, again, how many times we have to beat the Chiefs or whoever?
Let's say you even split with the Chiefs that year, and then you beat the Chiefs in the playoffs.
That'd be great, but gosh, I would hate to lose to them. Too.
But you would hate to lose to anybody.
Yeah, but if I have to lose, I don't want to lose to the Chiefs. Just like I know you don't want to lose to the Packers.
Okay, let's say you lose to the I don't know,
a team that we didn't play.
The Dolphins.
That would be better. A team that we didn't play throughout the regular season, I can deal with that a lot, than a team that we played twice in the regular season already. That's what college football is great.
Speaking of college football, we've been talking about it a bunch. Let's get to the games that are coming up this weekend. We'll just start with.
That's not going to be the last time we have that.
No, it won't be. And I like it.
The closer it gets to the playoffs.
We'll keep battling it. All right, we're just going to start with my team, Michigan. They host Oregon at 3:30 on this coming Saturday. It doesn't have a lineup yet. I'm going to bet it's going to be at least double digits. I would say it's going to be like 17. I could see it even being up to 20.
You think so?
I do. Michigan went back to Davis Warren last week. Their run got absolutely stopped by Michigan State, but they found a way to win the game.
He's got to be your guy, right?
He's got to be the guy. There were some throws I was like, oh my God, what the hell is he doing? But then there was other throws he made. I'm like, you know what? It's throws that good quarterbacks should make, but we haven't been making, and he did it.
He's coming around.
The defense, after getting gashed in the early part, they slowed Michigan State down, but Oregon's a different animal. Can Michigan stay in this game?
This is literally like any game that Oklahoma plays. If Oregon comes out firing and gets ahead early, just like Oklahoma, I don't know if Michigan has the firepower.
They don't.
I know Michigan State went up, 7 or did they go up 7 or 10?
It was 7. It was 7, yeah.
7, that's obviously manageable. But if you go down by 2 scores against an Oregon team, that's going to be tough. Now, here's the thing. Michigan has nothing to lose. You know what I mean? Oregon has a lot to lose on this game. They're undefeated. This is a big conference matchup. It's at the Big House. This is setting up nice for an upset. Can Michigan beat them? Yes. I don't think they can, but I don't think the line's going to be that big. I will be curious to see what it is. I think Michigan keeps it close, but I think Oregon's going to eventually pull out. But if Oregon can not just dominate early, if Michigan can stay within a score, you watch this game. This will get interesting. I mean, Ohio State, Nebraska. Come on now.
I think Michigan has enough talent out there to stay with them.
They do.
Which I would 100% agree. Oregon could score a little bit.
Score.
Michigan can't come back against Oregon.
Not too much.
I don't think Michigan wins this game. I want them to win. I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to cheer them on. It's kind of like what we've been talking about with like Oklahoma the last couple of weeks, where we're like, do they have enough talent on the field to maybe play with them? Yeah. Absolutely. Could it at halftime be Michigan be winning? Possibly.
I can see that.
I don't think Michigan wins this game. Can they? Yes. It's not a 0% chance. I think Oregon wins this game. It does worry me a little bit. I'm happy it's at Michigan and not at Oregon.
Well, that does help a little bit. But this sets up for a nice possible upset. I mean, I don't think Oregon would overlook Michigan because they have Maryland next. But I think Michigan has nothing to lose. They're fired up. They're coming off a win against a rival. You're at home. You have a lot of things going for Michigan right now.
I do. Michigan, listen, if it wasn't Michigan, if it was like a Minnesota who's this, I think Oregon could possibly look ahead. Right. They're not going to overlook Michigan going to the Big House.
No,
that's
a good point.
I hate to say this. I hate to pick my own team. I think Oregon wins this game.
Well, sometimes you have to be a little bit.
I got it.
But hey, gosh, Vanderbilt, Nebraska playing close to Ohio State. I mean, and Michigan, I think, is better than Nebraska for sure.
Here's a sneaky good game. Yes, I would agree. Yeah, yes. Yeah. Here's a sneaky good game that comes in later Saturday night. It's a ranked game. Pitt is undefeated, and they're going to SMU. SMU escaped Duke last week at Duke. So SMU 7-1. Pitt is 7-0. I mean, of the games that you thought would be two ranked teams this week, I don't think Pitt and SMU would be at the top of your list if you looked at the beginning of the schedule.
Why is nobody? I have not heard anybody talking about Pitt. Why is nobody even?
Here's why nobody's talking about Pitt.
Their schedule is that awful.
Here's why nobody's talking about Pitt. They beat Cincinnati by 1. They beat West Virginia by 4. Okay. They beat North Carolina by 10. They beat Cal by 2. That's why nobody's talking about Pitt.
They're just not.
But they just did beat Syracuse on last Thursday night, 41-13. They had 3 pick sixes of Kyle McCord. Ohio State fans were getting flashbacks. 3 pick sixes against Kyle McCord. Not in the game. I mean, they did have it for the game, but not in the game. In the first half.
That's crazy. Yeah, you texted me that. Now, in volleyball, because it is volleyball season, SMU did beat Pitt, I think, this year.
They did, yes.
Pitt's a very good volleyball team. So
Pitt's ranked number 1 in the country in volleyball.
But Pitt quietly 7-0. Now, who does Pitt have? SMU is decent, but I think Pitt can win this game, even though nobody's really talking about them. Other than Clemson coming up on Pitt's schedule, they might cause some problems in that.
I mean, they go to Louisville and they go to Boston College. If Pitt wins this game, then really they're only hurdle. It's Clemson. I mean, going to Louisville is not the easiest thing.
But listen, Pitt could mess some things up in the
They could. Over there. Nobody's talking about them. Nobody's talking about them.
Nobody's even mentioning Pitt in there because they're undefeated and they're ranked 18th.
They might be the least talked about undefeated team I've ever seen in my life.
Well, they're ranked 18th.
People are talking about more Army Navy than they are about Pitt.
Exactly. Pitt's barely ranked ahead.
Pitt is 18th
They're 7-0.
For reference, 7-0. They have played about the same type of schedule that Indiana has. Indiana's undefeated. Indiana's sitting at 13.
Right. But Indiana's done. They've dominated.
But they haven't lost. I mean, they haven't been trailed. Yes.
And they've dominated. Yeah, and they haven't even trailed at all. So, okay, Pitt. Okay, I'm going to start watching out for Pitt. If they win this game now, maybe some eyes will be on Pitt because SMU is decent.
Yeah. All right. There's not a lot of just pop out games.
Well, I mean, Indiana, Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State can. Florida, Georgia just doesn't seem to have the feel that it usually has because even though Florida's been on a nice little run after they started off awful, They just don't have enough to.
Okay,
to
let's go back to Florida real quick. So Florida is 4-3.
Hardest schedule in the country.
They've won 3 of the last 4. Their one loss was in overtime to Tennessee, who did beat Bama.
So
this is the next 4 games for Florida.
Right.
Number 2, Georgia.
Good luck.
In Jacksonville, so a neutral site game. At number 6, Texas.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Home against number 16, LSU.
Jeez.
Home against number 19, Mississippi.
Yeah, right.
Now, thankfully, 2 of those games are at home. Then they go to Florida State, who Florida State is just absolutely awful. But they're 4-3, and all they need is 2 wins. One of them is Florida State. They could win that game. But I don't know if they make. I don't think they make a bowl.
No.
I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I'm not a Florida fan.
No,
I don't think they have a shot to beat Georgia. They probably don't have a great shot to beat Texas. I do think they have a shot to beat LSU and Ole Miss.
I think they can beat Ole Miss before LSU. I think if I had to pick which one they win, I think I would pick Ole Miss over LSU. But I still don't think they're going to do it. They're going to win 5 games this year.
Yeah.
Them and Oklahoma have 5 wins.
Yeah, they can go play in the almost bowl. They almost bowl.
Maybe they'll be in Florida. I'll go watch it.
Maybe there's not enough teams that have 6 wins and they can get on because of academic merit.
There you go. All right.
I mean, Rutgers did that a couple years ago.
We're hoping for something.
I think Florida can kind of keep this close maybe for a little bit. I think Georgia win this game. Georgia's kind of been on a mission since they lost to Alabama, though.
Yes, Georgia's locked in. They're focused. Carson Beck playing a lot better than he did against Bama. Georgia's going to be super hard to beat. The only team that's beat Georgia in the last few years is Bama. I mean, nobody else beats them.
We got one more real big game to talk to, but before we get to that, let's just go through a couple of games. These are the ranked teams that are playing non-ranked teams. Boise State plays San Diego State. Do you think Boise State should be concerned?
No, Boise State. Okay. Genty runs for 160.
All right, Miami plays Duke. Do you think Duke has a shot?
No, I like Miami.
I think Duke has a shot.
You think Duke has a shot? I know they're not awful.
Duke's 6-2.
Yeah, they're decent.
And one of their losses was in overtime to SMU just a minute ago. I forget who they lost to the other game. But I agree. I think Miami wins. But you know what? Miami has a habit of making games closer than they should be.
Duke lost to Georgia Tech.
Ole Miss goes to Arkansas. Now, this is interesting because Arkansas does have an upset win over Tennessee. Arkansas is not a great team, but Ole Miss,
they're not blowing people out. They really aren't. I mean, the way that they kind of fooled around with Oklahoma, Arkansas can win that game.
Yeah, Ole Miss wins it though. Air Force goes to Army. Air Force is 1-6. Normally, this is a cool game because it's 2 armed forces. I always give salute up to all those people. I think Army might win this game by 30.
Army's gonna win this game. 100%.
Minnesota against Illinois. This is interesting because Minnesota is just coming off a butt whipping. They just laid the hammer. I cannot remember who they played, but they looked really good. Illinois is coming off that loss. Illinois is like maybe the least. Man, Maryland just beat USC. Illinois might be the least inspiring ranked team I've ever seen in my life.
They're not real exciting.
No, they're not.
The Brett Bielema guys.
I think Minnesota can come into this game and win it.
Yeah, Minnesota put 48 on Maryland. Minnesota's up and down. Minnesota beats USC, then they pound out on Maryland. Minnesota can win this game. It is at home. This isn't going to be one that you're going to want to watch for excitement, but you never know. It could be Illinois, Minnesota. Who knows? It could be a fun one.
Iowa State's undefeated. Should they be worried about Texas Tech coming to town?
Texas Tech can be pesky. They're 5-3. They can score a little bit. They just lost to TCU by 1. They lost to Baylor, but they beat Arizona. They beat Arizona State. Texas Tech can fool around and put some points up. I'm not sold on Iowa State yet. I'm just not.
I'm not, but I think Iowa State wins this game kind of easy. Should Indiana be concerned about going to Michigan State?
Well, are they overlooking Are they overlooking Michigan State?
For Ohio State?
Because the Ohio State game, no, they have the Michigan game after.
Oh, that's right. Either way, they have Michigan or Ohio State. I don't think they are. I think this team's pretty focused. This isn't like we've talked about, this isn't like this power team that's normally powerful that's like should look ahead. This team shouldn't look ahead.
They haven't earned it.
I think they handle them. I think they handle them.
Indiana's focused. I don't know if they get their quarterback back or not. I don't think it matters. Yeah, Michigan State's not.
All right, should Texas A&M, they're coming off. They're playing really well. They're 7-1, but they go to South Carolina. South Carolina, it's tricky. They just hammered Oklahoma. They played Alabama close. It's at South Carolina. I think South Carolina has a shot in this game. It's a night game. You know it's going to be rowdy there.
Yeah, if this was at College Station, Texas A&M, I'd pick Texas A&M. But this could be – South Carolina's going to come in this game. they can upset. This might be a good upset pick. I'm going to go with South Carolina. I like them. I like that defense.
I think Texas A&M wins, but I think South Carolina keeps it close. But I would not be shocked if South Carolina wins.
I like that South Carolina defense. I think they surprised Texas A&M. Let down for beating LSU.
All right. Before we go, Ohio State and Penn State, this is the big game of the day, but it's at noon.
I know. Wouldn't it be more fun if it was in Happy Valley?
I like the fact that Ohio State plays Michigan at noon. It's been that tradition they play at noon all the time. But this game deserves a Saturday night game. But I think Fox said, nope, we're taking it for big noon Saturday.
Penn State, over the last couple of years, the only teams they lose to are Ohio State and Michigan. And they don't play Michigan this year. Does Penn State and James Franklin, is this the year they get over the hump? They beat Ohio State.
This is the year they need to get over the hump.
They have to.
If
they don't do it this year, it might not happen. I'm going to say yes. I think Penn State gets it done this year. It's close. If it was in Columbus, I might think differently. But is Ohio State, did they get a wake-up call because Nebraska almost beat them? Maybe should have beat them. And they're like, okay, we just can't roll into places and win.
I will say this is even though Penn State has lost, to Ohio State, they give them games. They've been in games they should win. And then James Franklin. At the beginning of the year, I said James Franklin is going to James Franklin his way out of some wins. This is a game to prove me wrong. I do not like James Franklin. He's fine. He's not a bad person. I don't like Penn State, but I hate Ohio State more. I want Penn State to win this game.
I do too.
And coming into even last week, I don't know if I would have picked Penn State. But Ohio State showed some vulnerabilities last week. They shouldn't have let Nebraska stay in that game so long. I think Penn State has a very real shot at winning this game. I think this is close. I think Penn State has the firepower and the defense to beat them. I think they keep it close. I'm not picking a game because I don't want to pick against Ohio State and then jinx it. Okay. So all right. Close game. Penn State has a shot.
I'm going to say the same thing I've said all year. I said it before the season started. Will Howard is not the answer at quarterback.
Correct.
He is not the answer. Nebraska was fooling him. Nebraska got pressure on him. That offensive line didn't look very good. Nebraska's defense is okay. I'll give them that. But Indiana made him look awful. So I think Will Howard cannot win a game.
I think this is all you need to know about Ohio State and what they think about Will Howard. He threw 16 passes in that game.
Right.
They didn't trust him.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
To go win a game. And Penn State's better.
You're going to have to win a game. And a game like Penn State at Happy Valley, you have to go win that game. And I don't think Will Howard could do it. I haven't thought all year.
Right.
He showed it against Oregon, right?
Right.
And he didn't look good against Nebraska.
Right.
Like, he is not the guy. I'm sorry.
The Nittany Lions, I'm rooting for them. Yeah, I'm rooting for them to win this game. Again, I'm going to
Nittany Lions win.
Not pick it, but we're going to go for the game. All right. We didn't talk a lot of NFL just because of the scheduling situation we're at.
My Raiders are down 7-0 right now.
Already. They're playing the Kansas City. We're already down. Who knows? Next week we'll talk about them being down 28-0. All right. It's been fun. Good luck this week going to, you're coaching your bowling team, state tournament. We'll be back next week. We'll cover this game. Hopefully we're talking about a Nittany Lions win, and maybe we'll talk about 2 upset wins for Oklahoma and Michigan.
Well, it would be nice Michigan would be fun if they beat Oregon, but Oklahoma has Maine. Come on now.
Okay. They should be good there.
If they lose that one.
They should be good there. All right, we'll be back next week, hopefully talking about more chaos. Tony and I will argue more about the playoff.
100%.
A lot of good stuff to do it. All right, check out some Happy Nuts. Get that stuff. Check out Elevation or E5280sports.com. Check out all the pods on there. But until next week, we'll be back at it. I'm Adam.
I'm Tony. Thanks for listening.